Hi, today I'm going to talk about change and a parable to start it, the parable of the parboiled frog. Imagine a scenario cooked up by some crazy philosopher. You've got two frogs. Frog number one is put into boiling water for some perverted reason. The frog is immediately going to try to jump out. Frog number two, it's put in a pot of lukewarm water and then a flame's put underneath it. And the frog is like, this is really comfortable. Oh, it's nice and warm. Until eventually it's like, oh my God, it's too hot. And the frog is dead. The moral of the crappy story is that sudden change is different than gradual change. If we bring that into the domain of industrial control systems, 30 years ago, maybe there weren't any IP addresses running around the plant. Maybe there was just a few simple PLCs that had serial ports. And then you got a smart thermostat and this and that, and then the PLCs had an IP and they talked to an HMI and there was a simple historian. And you fast forward a little bit and you've got distributed control systems and you've got SCADA and you've got multiple sites and you've got remotes, and suddenly it's a little bit complicated for one person with a screwdriver to get it all deployed, and commissioning becomes a team of multiple people rather than just one person, and becomes a cast of thousands, each a specialist in their domain. And what ends up happening is over this time, you've gone from a very simple security model, which was physically oriented, who has a key to the lock on the door, and maybe there's a camera to watch for that, to, well, we've got a bunch of stuff that's inherently pretty unsafe, but don't worry, it's still physically in the plant, and there's no way for miscreants from the internet to get to it, which we call the air gap. And then over time, as progress happened, the air gap began to get chipped away at. So eventually you started to see, well, it is an air gap, but there's this little hole in it because this new thing we put in it has a license manager, and that's on the internet. So we created an outbound hole, and well, for provisioning and commissioning of things, we created a jump box or an inbound proxy or VPN or something for my support staff to use, the companies that I work with to debug something. And well, of course, you got to have remote alarm monitoring, and that went from being a modem that would dial a pager to that being something that's internet delivered. And next thing you know, you've got things that are permanently attached into big data infrastructures that are hybrid in the cloud. And you woke up and you're a frog that's in a pot of now boiling water that you jumped into it when it was nice and cool. And that's what's happened. And you can either try to prevent progress, get off my lawn, we're going to get rid of all this, we're going to keep the air gap forever, or you can recognize that you just can't do that. The manufacturers are starting to create products that just won't work without some aspect of internet. We saw that happen in the agriculture with John Deere. When I was a kid on our farm, a tractor was something that didn't really have electronics. It had something you could start with a screwdriver that when you jumped across it, and there were lights on the front, and that was it. Today, you buy a John Deere tractor, and it's got a cellular modem in it, and it drives itself, and it calls back home for maintenance, and you can't fix it. There's been a big fight. And that happened relatively gradually. We're seeing that in all industries. And again, there's a bunch of reasons for it. Some is just money. The manufacturers want to get a subscription into something that used to be one time. Some of it is practical. Well, it's kind of expensive to do big data and AI and LLMs at the edge. You can go get your own graphics cards and RAIDs and this and that, but it's a lot cheaper to do it centrally and pooled. Some of it is just because of the skill set issue. It used to be that everybody as a generalist could do everything, and now that you have a smaller number of people as specialists in each, you need to share them so they can no longer be at each site all the time, or even just physically at each site when they need to be able to work remote. So you may as well face the fact that whether you like it or not, your only defense, which was the air gap, is now a little bit closer to Swiss cheese. Still delicious, still good on a sandwich, but not necessarily the protection, the armor that you need. And you're going to need to start to think about, well, if I'm going to have remote access, I may as well have secure remote access. And that's where I come in. Give me a call, Don at agilicus.com, my company Agilicus. We make it really easy to have secure remote access in that industrial plant so that you as a frog can swim happily rather than being an appetizer. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.